Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to the Lord of the Rings adventure card game. So, it's been a while since I last played, and we did all of Shadow's Reach and got this as a campaign reward, which really puts us in a different perspective as far as just how in the world would we possibly be able to afford the hundreds of thousands of fellowship points necessary to unlock, say, this card or this card, let alone the thousands and thousands of fellowship points to unlock all of these grayed out cards. Like, it definitely seems, since there isn't really an online presence to this, you would have to go through the campaigns 2, 3, 4 times potentially before you'd earned enough points, and I just don't really see myself going down that direction, particularly since I'm not really engaging with the concept of deck building, and this is a deck building game, so I'm not really engaging with it at all. So I do want to have a shallower experience, and I want to do the Shadows Fall campaign and then the next campaign after that, and then do these 3 encounters. But that's pretty much as I'm willing to commit to this. So let's hop into Silver Claws, Quest 1. And it would be, I guess, extremely surprising if each of these quests weren't close to 30 minutes to an hour long. So I assume what this story is this takes place after the events of the previous campaign, which definitely felt more like the Hobbit story. This may be the beginning of the actual Fellowship of the Rings, Lord of the Rings book. Although I don't even really understand the Lord of the Rings book series clearly, because I kind of think at some point there was 3 books that got merged into one called The Lord of the Rings. But it may have always been just one really long book called Lord of the Rings. So we'll just do it to starter deck. We're still just trying to experiment there. Clearly you have to beat everything 3 times to get these 1,000 fellowship point rewards and whatever is hidden under these locks. There's really no reason to hide what the rewards will be.
It is with a sense of sadness at the passing of an era that the elves of Lothlorien bid Bilbo farewell. He had arrived in the Golden Wood by a circuitous path, which began with a desire for one last grand adventure before he retired. Alas, his wish was not to be. The crafty old hobbit had instead found only danger, as he was kidnapped by spiders and carried off by their orcish allies. Rescued in the nick of time, Bilbo recovered his health under the watchful care of Celeborn and Galadriel. During the weeks that followed, Bilbo sat amongst the golden leaves and chatted with the many visitors who called upon him. Yet the time came at last for him to return to Rivendell, and so with an escort of elven guardians, he set off toward his adopted home.
So, yeah, it seems to me, since we're talking about Bilbo instead of Frodo, we are still in the stories of The Hobbit, which maybe The Hobbit is just more popular, and yet the phrase The Lord of the Rings is used way more often. I think the Hobbit book was written after as a prequel, so maybe it was written a little bit better.
Ever vigilant, the elves have turned their attention to the dark stirrings in nearby Mirkwood. Bilbo was not the only person abducted. Contact has been lost with entire villages scattered within the great forest. Concerned with what dark portents these happenings might herald, Celeborn and Galadriel called you forth. As Bilbo's rescuers, they consider you particularly well suited to find the answers that their scouts have been unable to uncover. You are commanded to set out for Roscabel, and there to seek the counsel of Radagast the Brown. The wizard should help shine a light on the shadowy events transpiring in darkest Mirkwood. You gather what you need quickly, and set out for the Vales of Anduin and Roscabel beyond.
We're getting a lot of, like, proper nouns here as far as descriptions. But I do definitely have a feeling that, like, Celeborn and Galadriel are characters that will totally disappear from the Hobbit book and be replaced with other characters in the Lord of the Rings book. And yeah, I've never even heard of Radagast the Brown as far as yet another wizard. So, of the wizards, I guess everyone is a specific color, which limits the number of wizards that could possibly exist. Well, within some reason.
The mouth of Dol Guldur pondered his troubles. The mighty orc chieftain Uthag had suffered recent losses, but had recovered quickly. Despite the setback, he had not only made good on his quota, he exceeded it handily. Still, the desire from the south is insatiable. The order had come to increase their numbers even further. The mouth did not question his master, or his master's master. Indeed, he had no free will of his own. His master's command was his duty to obey. Considering his options, he comes to a conclusion. To obtain the numbers requested, they must go further afield from Dol Guldur. The mouth would need assistance if he was to misdirect any unwanted eyes that might take notice. He would need to set in motion other troubles that would distract the curious and lead them astray.
Perhaps an old terror. A forgotten terror. Yes.
He whispers.
This might suffice.
So yeah, we're still getting this weird two-perspective storytelling, which feels like, in this case, the game is just trying to squeeze in more dialogue and text as possible. Interesting picture here where you have the mouth's back of his legs are all you can really see, and then you have what look like humans being enslaved.
Your party spends several days crossing the Vale, basking in the gentle sunlight that warms the late spring air to caress the grasslands. The journey is uneventful, until you come across an odd scene. Ahead, you spy an eagle circling above something that has caught its eye. This is not one of the great eagles of legend, but rather a bedraggled thing with dark feathers and oddly curved wings. It calls out once before diving swiftly down upon something you cannot see. Quickening your pace, you soon discover a horrifying scene. Two bodies lie before you, bloody and torn. The craven eagle is attempting to make off with one. With the eagle distracted, a swarm of greedy rats darts from the underbush to devour the other. You must drive off the foul beasts and recover these poor souls. Perhaps you may also discover the nature of what slaughtered them in this clearing.
A lot of dialogue here. This is like 4 scenes of dialogue.
If by life or
5
death I can
minutes
save
of
you,
just
I
dialogue
A gift.
before you can even
I will
play.
give you.
I will go and look on the halls of Durin.
Which I would definitely prefer more of a system where dialogue popped up in the middle of the gameplay in the battle. Okay. Investigate the bodies before they're devoured. Also examine the bodies to learn what happened to them. Locked if discarded, -5 progress per players from the investigate the bodies. If discarded, -5 I don't know how you discard things from the field. Summon a large rat. Alright. So this feels like this is going to be a very different experience. Scarred 1 ravaged corpse, -5 for progress per player from investigate the bodies. Discard ravaged corpse and investigate the bodies. So he has to do this. So we basically have 3 turns to win. What does this guy have? Damage. Okay.
For Rivendell!
So I think the move here is to just let him attack and investigate the body very quickly.
Charge!
Now meanwhile, I guess the question will come down to are we in a particularly bad position Yeah, I don't know if I'm in a bad position or not. It really is just going to come down to what is the next round going to be like. Because, yeah, you do this and you win. Having recovered the bodies, you discovered that they were torn by fang and teeth, wolves, but what would cause the wolves of Mirkwood to venture out into the Vale. Clearly, they were not driven by hunger. Clearly, they were not driven by hunger. And the text is still incredibly small. You completed the goal. For this location, travel to avoid the looming threat. Alright. Good job. Let's go ahead and play this. Go ahead and play this. Nope, let's not play that. Let's go ahead and put this in defense mode. Well, that doesn't set us up particularly well, but whatever. So you barely have like
the borders of Mirkwood,
6 or 7 minutes of gameplay after you have 5 minutes of text.
Beasts, Rather, they attacked with cunning and purpose. Something drives these creatures. Perhaps the brown wizard will have sorely needed answers. Barely have you continued on when you hear a distant howl from the hills beside your path. An answering howl sounds from behind you, and more beasts call out from all around. The wolves show great cunning and appear to be herding you, but for what purpose you know not.
Sorry, I'm pouring water from one bigger container to a smaller container as I'm trying to keep myself somewhat hydrated while playing. So now we are at our next conflict. So I could either defeat every enemy in play, which is 4 at the moment, or defeat 5 wolves. This is a wolf, this is a wolf, this is a wolf, this is a wolf, so it almost certainly seems like you would end up almost certainly end up having to fight. What's interesting here is he seems like he can force me to travel to the next location, which I don't know what is the big deal about that. Why you would focus on not going to the next location since you have to go to the next location anyways. My only real thought here is to try and have as many things in defense mode as possible. Surge. Faint. It's probably not a terrible thought. Play a surge. Okay. So we have 4, which could destroy this, or it could destroy this. This probably makes all the sense in the world to destroy this. Our advanced warning gives us more protection. And guess I can just destroy that. And that sets us up for the next turn. Go ahead and heal this. And then guess you put this in defense mode. Although it might make more sense to put this in defense mode first, since that's an ally. 2 wolves down. We could kill 1 right now. And I guess what you just want is as much people on the field as possible. And I feel like Guard is better than Surge to really have. It's 1 wolf to go. and we can just win here.
I serve no man.
Okay. I'm gonna put this in block mode first. I'm gonna destroy this next. And we can't do anything more. So then the big question is, what is at the next location that it would have been so dangerous to skip to the next location in an unprepared manner? Of course, we are losing health as we go.
Galadriel felt the hunger deep within her. It was not a hunger for flesh to nourish her body so much as an urge to devour and destroy. Bidden though she was by the servants of the One, she was only too eager to drive her children forth, so they might succumb to their baser nature, to revel in destruction, to consume.
This is definitely one of those paragraphs that I imagine the Lord of the Rings books are full of, just descriptive but kind of pointless paragraphs, which you definitely would have in books, way less than you might have in any other visual medium, where you would just depict a character that is driven by hunger, or have them say, like, the hunger, something shorter. Of course, we don't know really who Gol Zubarth is, so if we were going to go down the full route of actually wanting backstory, we'd actually want some backstory. We really don't even know if Gol or Zubarth means anything as far as a name, whether those are actual names or titles.
The wolves close behind, you reach the eaves of Mirkwood at last. So near to Roscabel, you fear the worst for the wizard who dwells there. But you'll never make it to that place of sanctuary if you do not stop your pursuers first. While the trees offer some cover, they will also slow your progress. Within the woods, the wolves can easily surround you and attack from all sides. You must make your stand here if you are to survive the day. The wolves snarl and prowl through the undergrowth to encircle you. Taking advantage of the scant moment of respite, you gather nearby sticks, rocks, and other detritus to create a last desperate barrier against imminent attack.
So it seems like in the first campaign you're fighting spiders, in the second campaign we're fighting wolves. Which that definitely makes some sense. You have 2 rounds to fortify against impending attacks by the wolves' reinforcements. We don't have any special things on either side. So plus 2 health to every character. Grant block in this location to every character. -1 to every wolf. And there is an ambush pursuit wolf. Okay. We want this health for the heroes in particular to be particularly high. Alright. So, first case scenario is almost certainly to do this. There is an argument maybe to play one more character. 2.
Our history shall be preserved.
So that gives everything block. I don't know if I could summon another thing, whether that would have done anything for me. Okay. Next maneuver is to potentially get our health back up.
He cannot stand alone.
think that's a smart move. This guy really is just a shield character, so it's a pretty good setup. Chase down restores 2 health to everything, to their enemies. This potentially lets me heal this back up. And before I take any other action, let's just heal everything. We're not really struggling here. So, too many things. Seems like you could pull this off. Right. Self-preservation on this character. Ranged character. Extra weapon. On this character, I guess. Reduce each player's hands to 3 cards. Do we even really want to do that? Well, it does it at the end of the turn no matter what, so that's something potentially to be concerned about, but not by much. I could kill this wolf and do everything else, so let's do that. Put this in guard mode with that. There's our goal. You have 2 rounds to fortify against an impending wolf attack. So here is our wolf attack. Defeat 5 wolves or every enemy in play. Okay. So we were literally just setting up for everything until this point. Now we are just going to put everything in defense mode. Deal 2 damage to 1 random hero if Sauron has the most cards in play. Which wouldn't be the case. Okay. So we've got defense, I don't know if it's really valuable to go into more defense mode. I think it's probably easier to just go ahead and attack. Okay. Do we have enough damage to attack and defeat this character? Probably not. But what I can do is attack with this, and then summon this, replace this character,
Passes unnoticed.
and then attack with that. But he managed to keep one character in play, so that didn't win on that turn like I would have liked it to. Does anybody have a ranged attack? He does. So we've completed the goal by just killing that one. Which that means now is the time to potentially put as many things as possible in a defense mode. Doesn't look like Sauron can do anything once we've done everything. Would there be any value in getting rid of cards? No. Alright, so we have to discard one card, so we'll just discard that one card. It lets us choose, that's fine.
The creature called the Ghost hesitates for a moment at the edge of the tree line. Concealed behind lush vegetation, she spies upon the dwelling in the center of the clearing. There's power here. The crafty old beast had learned to respect power, especially the kind of power that might cause her injury. Her faithful companions prowl nearby, as always. They would offer their own lives if needed to protect their mistress. Each looks toward her, sensing her hesitation, seeking her guidance. With a grunt, the ghost at last indicates the compound. As her master had commanded, so it will be done. It is time to feed.
Now what's weird about this dialogue is that you have this Tol Goroth, servant of Tol in Goroth, but that character in the previous paragraph, Tol Goroth, as they were described, didn't even seem to show up in the fight we just did, so what was the point of the paragraph happening at that point?
Oh, calamity. You've defeated the pursuing wolves, only to find Roscabel under siege by many more, and led by a great beast larger than the rest, but with a look of something far more sinister. This is no simple wolf, or even warg, but one of the great beasts of old that inhabits their form, a werewolf. Two great wargs protect the creature, hewing close to its side. As they turn to face you, the rest of the pack charges the gates of Roscabel, their claws gouging into the rough-hewn wood. You know not if the wizard is in residence, but it's clear the beasts are driven by a singular need to enter the compound within. You must prevent these creatures from breaking down the gate while holding off their terrifying leader. No mean task. The great werewolf howls in challenge, and you unleash a rallying cry in return. The battle is joined.
Here's a great example of the art probably just being commissioned and not really thought through by much, because I would really benefit from seeing what they mean by warg. What I think a warg is, if I was just to guess, is probably a feral pig-like creature, maybe grown and bred for war, not some kind of lower werewolf creature. But regardless, a picture of even what they mean by werewolves would be helpful. I didn't even know werewolves were in the Lord of the Rings universe, which, if anything, I would say up until this point I've always thought of the Tolkien-esque fantasy concepts as almost 100% wholly original, not inspired by any other fantasy stories, Brother Grimm type tales that would have preceded it. Certainly Red Riding Hood and the Wolf implies a man-like giant wolf, and in modern times it's pretty easy to think of the wolf in Little Red Riding Hood as being close to a werewolf, although I guess technically in that case it really isn't stated that way. But werewolves and vampires and skeletons and ghouls and things like that are all decidedly less Tolkien-esque in my mind than orcs and wolves and spiders. So maybe we'll get final encounter, defeat Gul Zorbath, which feels like the paragraph describing Gul Zorbath would have made more sense here. So Gul Zorbath just looks like a wolf, and Dark Wog just looks like a wolf and is under the category of wolf. It does have glowing eyes, so there's something mystical there. Discard one ally, apply its power to the run Gombo under attack, location specific. Summon one random animal if we do that. And -1 progress for each enemy in play. All power remaining goes to the Brother Crest. I can't read it. There's so much that can happen in each of these scenarios, but then there really is just so much that won't happen in these scenarios. So it all just seems kind of pointless. Again, we just kind of want to keep things alive. So probably, I mean, we can just win here. This guy doesn't have block or anything. Nope, he does. Okay. Well, I'm not particularly keen on this getting hit, so hitting that and losing the block there isn't a terrible thought. Discard one ally, apply its ability to engulf under attack. Store 2 health with the arrival. I think that's not terrible.
You need not worry about anything for the present.
I serve no man.
See this? This number is going up. I cannot read what this says. At some amount, remove the requirement. Oh, And I probably have already removed the requirement. No, not yet, apparently. Low on supplies. Increasing our fate level.
Welcome to Rivendell.
Let's just keep on healing things.
My eyes see everything. There.
So that's at 20. Can I attack this still? No. Yeah, I'm having a real hard time figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing here. But I guess what we do is clear the field a little bit. That probably makes the most amount of sense.
He cannot stand alone!
See, I just don't see what bolstering here is really doing. Let's just continue to keep these characters healed. Okay.
He cannot stand alone!
For Rivendell!
But he's just gonna play another character. Yeah.
He cannot stand
So,
alone!
I guess the idea is you've gotta exhaust his resources so you can do this. And so you can do this. And that's just the end of the quest at that point.
The beast howls with a mixture of pain and anger, eyes flashing as it comprehends defeat. Summoning unknown reserves of strength, the werewolf leaps into the trees and disappears through the darkness. You join your companions to catch your breath as Radagast the Brown staggers through the gates of Roscabel. Breathing heavily, he calls out,
Ah, my friends! I thank you for coming to my aid. Though that creature is not dead, it shall not return anytime soon.
Before you can make any inquiries or describe the nature of your mission, the eccentric old man darts off towards a small path in the trees.
There's no time to dally about on my front lawn!
He shouts.
This was just a distraction. There's a village nearby whose residents are in jeopardy.
He pauses at the tree line, turning back to face you.
Don't just stand there with your mouths agape. Hurry!
The wizard disappears into the trees, and you scramble to follow.
The body of the beast falters. Yet though her breath comes in labored gasps, the vile fire that drives her remains undimmed. The master will not be pleased. Still, this is a worry for the future. For now, the hunger remains. Perhaps you could find some local hunter or woodsman, or even a wretched goblin to sate her never-ending need. master will not miss one or two of those foul creatures. Licking her wounds, the silver ghost slips deeper into Mirkwood, driven ever on by her need to consume.
Yeah, and I've really gotten to the point where I really don't have too much to say about this dialogue. It's weird that you're getting stories from both perspectives, and as a tabletop game, I guess maybe that would make more sense that there would be one story given to the Sauron player and one story given to the hero players. In that final encounter, we didn't even get anywhere close to summoning the brown wizard, which really just highlights how unbalanced this game really is. You just need to build a deck that does a decent amount of damage, 4 or 5 damage if you get lucky on most characters, and then a few characters that can do some extra power damage, but you basically never need to use the fate system. It's not balanced enough, and you never really have to worry about the threat level system. So if you got rid of those two systems completely, you would just have a simpler game. Not that the game needs to be simpler, but it is not really adding much. So we get, for completion, a hero award. Defeat 20 unwounded enemies with Gimli, each within a single attack, which is unlocked maybe a new skin and a new cards, or maybe just new cards. For beating the quest in general, we're going to get 1,000 fellowship points. For completion, in total silence. Then for first completion, we have another 2 copies of a card of a weapon. We completed the quest with every hero in play. We avoided having any wolf units trigger pursuit. We resolved investigate the bodies while each ravaged corpse was in play. We did not complete the quest with Radagast in play, which would have been the brown wizard. And we, at the ease of Murwalk, resolved 3 objectives, which gives us a pathetic amount of 800 fellowship points for doing all of that. Then you get 1,500 fellowship points for 3 heroes completing it for the first time. What probably should happen is that you should have random deck creation or selection as an option. That there should just be a button right at the front here that says random, and then you run a simple algorithm to build a random deck, which wouldn't be that hard to really pull off, because all you have to do, as far as the rules of making a deck, if we go all the way back up here, is you have to pick 3 hero cards. So that's easy enough to randomize. If the 3 hero cards, if the hero card has a purple nature to it, then that limits you down to playing purple cards. If it has a green, that limits you to green. If it has a blue, it limits you to blue. And if it has a red, it limits you to red. So, whatever 3 colors you pick, unless you pick randomly 2 or 3 of the same color, filters this list down into random cards. And then it would be very easy at that point to make a random deck. And there's enough variety here that you could have the randomizer pick each card individually and not randomly give you 2 copies of each of these cards. So almost certainly a random deck would have 1 of every card it picks. Of course, at the moment, the problem with that random concept, even though it should be in the game, And most card games would not benefit from having a random concept, a random deck, but this one really would. There isn't really as many cards unlocked as you would like, so you probably wouldn't get that different of a deck, which is also a problem with the deck building concept right now. If I was going to try and build a deck, let's just do it properly. Let's see. Come back here. Deck builder. Create deck. New deck. We'll type in power as the name. The thing we're going to look for is high attack. So we see a 3 and 10. Variety here is probably not going to be that big. Okay. So you start with that. This grants +1 to every other dwarf units if you're not exhausted. Too.
Need, son of need.
Okay. So then card type, ally cards. We're looking for dwarfs as far as cards that we can add. Here's some dwarves, which we don't have, and it's not of the right color class anyways. Here's some dwarves, which we don't have. Here's some dwarves, which we don't have. Here's some dwarves. Here's some dwarves. Here's some dwarves. Overall, trying to have a strategy like this may not really matter. Seems like we have a lot of hobbits, but you don't have enough heroes to justify hobbits. More dwarf cards we don't own. Yeah, if anything, probably a Rohan deck is the only thing that makes any sense. Let me see. Can I even drag it to the deck if I don't own it? No, I can't. Yeah, so this card's ability at the moment is pretty useless. Other cards not skins. I don't think you're gonna run into too much here. I'm looking for a card that would in any way benefit any of the other cards for power. This is probably what we would go with. I think you probably want this guy. Though he's got good attack, good power, plus if he's not hurt, if he doesn't take any damage, he reduces your fate, your threat, or increases your fate. Just so that brings a whole new level to it. Gain 1 fate for each threat. Each of the threat meter. Achieve, restore 1 health to 1 Hobbit hero. I think he's a good category to choose too. Yeah, there's no hero here that gives +1 damage to hobbits or Rohan characters or anything like that. So you do something like that, and then that means we can't play any of these cards. Now, we can also not play cards like this where you would have to have 2 purples as far as sphere levels. So you can kind of unclick all of that. And then you could also unclick everything that we don't own, which just leaves you with a small selection of cards. Discard 1 random treachery. Upkeep draws a card. Having you go through cards fairly quickly, which is probably not that useful. Revenge readying a character. Exhaust a minion to return a minion. It's not a terrible card to take. I don't think we've ever even used Gandalf. I think guard cards are probably good. Guard, stalwart, and ranged. Seems like a valuable card. Healing. At the end, gaining more fate power. Think about that one. There's just kind of no reason why you would pick these characters unless you are just looking for straight up health or attack, but there are better cards that have been unlocked or that we either started with compared to this anyways. Look, 3-2-6 versus 2-2-4 with no effect. I've still yet to figure out what +1 fate this round versus objectives at full. Reducing Sauron's ability to use resources could be useful. Okay, that's 14 of 30. Then the next step would be to have some resource items. Exhausting enemies. It's a good one. A hobbit character. So we could give this to upkeep to exhaust his resources more. Clearly, though, in this deck building idea, we haven't focused solely on power like I was hoping to do. We've instead had to pick and choose. There are some spells here that look like they would synergize with hobbits. Just keep on trying to find things. This is a card that you basically should never need. For resources, 2 health and block. So it does kind of seem like you could. And see, this was a card we unlocked, so we know this is probably good. It does seem like you can make a Hobbit deck, but not a Dwarf deck, and not a Rowan deck. And I assume the tabletop version of this eventually did have some kind of expansion that would have leaned more into that idea, where you could have made a Hobbit deck or a Dwarf deck. Summon random Hobbit allies. Secret path to progress. A lot of these cards that I'm picking are not any different. I don't even know what Vanquish does. I guess maybe if you kill something, you'll gain guard. Which, there might be a synergy around that idea. We only have room for one more card. And we clearly, even now, have like having barely unlocked anything, there's clearly enough cards here to make a deck. Which you would think, if they're correct about saying there was only 100 cards in this game, 100 unique cards, and you can have 2 copies, you'd think that you wouldn't be able to have that much of a variety, but I somehow managed to pull it off. Yeah. And it would only be more choices, better choices probably, but more choices nonetheless when we unlocked more cards. Which certainly we could have gone through this deck building process and purchased a bunch of cards. Just spend 2,000. Like, I could do that for 10 cards. 1, 2, 3 on this page, 1, 2, 3 on this page, 1, 2, 3, 4 on this page, which would still leave a massive amount of cards to unlock. And it's just not gonna happen. I'm not gonna probably ever spend the amount of time it would take to make another deck. Particularly since that didn't really feel like that improved anything by much. Like this power deck may be way better, or it only may be just slightly different. We don't have like a new indicator either. Like modern games would have definitely hooked into that idea that for every new card, like this warg or anything, this is probably a new card that we hadn't seen before this point. It would have made a lot of sense to have a red dot that says this is new and have the player look at it. This is interesting that in different narratives, apparently there's a multiplayer narrative. I don't even know how you'd get to that, but the health changes on the character, on the warg. But yeah, you would expect there to be red dots here and then a red dot here telling you that there's something new. For every card you got in the card gallery, there should be red dots for every new card you unlock, and a red dot here for cards and a red dot here for new heroes. Yeah, multiplayer. Join a multiplayer game. Let's see what that even does. Refresh host list. Nobody's online. Yeah, because this game is dead. Multiplayer host, private. Let's see what this would be. So, it does seem to me like you can select a campaign or an encounter, but only of the ones you've unlocked if you're going to host it, which means you still have to play the game in single player first, or play it in multiplayer with somebody else hosting who's already done it to do the later quests. Which, yeah, that sucks. So it's the same thing, but you apparently can't play on advanced mode, but you can play on expert mode in multiplayer. That's weird. It's the same exact same content, it's just you have to work your way through it with a friend. Which, in all fairness, that would make this experience a little bit better if we went down that direction. And were playing with someone else. But they would also have to have a lot of free time and a lot of commitment to the Lord of the Rings. And even at that, unless you have a group of people that you could cycle between, and you were going to play this like every Friday for an entire year, I just don't think you'd play enough of this game to have the fellowship points to unlock the cards to even feel like there would be a good experience. Clearly, once this game was abandoned, it needed to be updated. One final update that just gave a massive amount of fellowship points to every player to let them unlock all the cards. If you gave them exactly enough fellowship points to unlock all the cards and play in single player, but not enough fellowship points to buy all of the avatars and things like that, that would have been a fair balance. But yeah, not bothering to put out any kind of update like that, you definitely have run into a game that would be better off if you just found a way to cheat, to give yourself the fellowship points to start with to unlock all the cards, to make a deck of your own choosing at the beginning to do the single player content. Regardless, this is still going fairly long in the single player category. So if there was no single player content here, there'd be no reason to purchase this game at all, because you would not be able to really play. But you are getting quite a few hours of these single player content. It's a little slow to get, and that's why it's so long, but it's good enough. It's average, I'd say. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. We'll play with the new deck I just built next time. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.